Welcome back, everybody. So today's part 4. We are going to move on to the passenger side, trying to get that knocked out. There's a couple little things that I picked up from doing the driver's side of the wheel, just a little bit different on the passenger side as far as like where to cut on the chassis. I probably cut a little too much off, why I had to cap certain parts and stuff like that from the driver's side, but that's just kind of how it goes when you're doing something new. So we're going to point out those little things when it comes to cutting up the chassis. We're going to get that top plate on, and we're going to just go ahead and assemble that bottom control arm and get that wrapped up. At that point, we will go on to shocks and sway bar links, which I do have on order, which we'll probably get to in the next video. So I'm just kind of wrapping up the front end here. So once that's done, we go right on to the back and start tackling that and knocking that out. So we're gonna go ahead and just get rocking here on the front and go from there. Okay, now that I'm moving on to the other side here, there's just a couple little things that I learned from the other side was that I have to notch up in here, this panel that bolts in to the car, this fiberglass panel here. You notch this section out here because what happens is this control arm, when it's all the way up, it hits it. This is actually cracked on mine. It was probably from the coilovers being so low, hitting a hard bump or something and cracking that. But we're going to section that out there. We'll take this whole panel out. We have to support the hood too because the main hood prop assembly is right there and bolts to that. So we're going to undo that, support the hood, pull that out, notch that. And the other thing that I'm going to do differently from the other side is the piece here that has for the front control arm, the very frontmost part, I cut back really far the first time. So this time I'm just going to cut a little forward because I ended up putting a cap piece here. So I don't need to do that. So I'm going to come almost to where this bolt hole is here. I'm going to trim that and then trim this piece out here. I went back pretty far on the driver's side, but this time I'm not going to go back as far. I'm just going to come over here. Maybe it's like 4 inches or so and then come down and cut that little piece there. So I'm going to go ahead and just start trimming that stuff out, take this piece out, and then we'll start prepping our top mount to go up in there. I just want to show you a couple things on this panel here. So besides the ones from the wheel well there and there are 2 that go right down to like the frame area, and then 3 in the front that go to the frame area. And a couple little things I noticed was there's like a little, I believe it's a 1/4 inch screw bolt holding one of the AC lines in there. And then there's another 10mm bolt holding one of the heater lines in there. So just to keep an eye out for those things. And another thing that I did too was I loosened this nut that holds these heater lines just so there's a little bit more movement in there so you can sneak this piece out there. So it's kind of the same on the other side except for the AC lines and the heater lines. Obviously you'll have the ones in the wheel well and then you'll have the ones that go onto the frame rail there. All right, as you can see here, that's all that I cut out, just that little piece like that. So now that'll give me enough room there for any kind of clearance, even when that thing's all the way up. Okay, so this is the new improved cut plan here for the chassis side. Now what I ended up doing was I didn't go back as far. The driver's side I started cutting back here further behind this factory bolt hole, and I ended up having to capping that, which I said. So this time I only went over here about like 4.5 inches or so, and then I came straight down in front of that bolt and notched it, just this little piece straight down there. So that's all you really have to take out there. And then I also did notch inside here as well. And then I came all the way over here, right by this brake line mount, right along there. And I came straight down. There's a little overhang that goes right in here. I notched that. And then along this backside here, I notched all the way up here close and all the way in front of the back control arm mount. You can see that in there, mainly because of this. Now we can see this thing traveling up, and it gives us all the clearance. And that pretty much is right around there is fully compressed, but there's just a little extra in there just in case. So that gives us all the clearance that we need. And the only support that we're going to do is just this long bar right across here. And then obviously we're going to support this plate up in here. All right, so I'm getting ready to assemble the passenger side control arm here. So these will pretty much come like this, assembled like this in two pieces. What I did was I ended up self-etching primer and painted the undersides of this area, because once you put this on and weld it up, if this isn't painted, you may get some rust through time since it is bare metal. So these are pretty much all ready to go to put on. So I'm going to get ahead and just start assembling this. Another thing too was I have the control arm prepped as far as the holes drilled, and then I also have these little bolt bosses sanded down here. It's the rearmost one that needs the most clearance. So I sanded that down there and the same one here, and just made sure everything in here is smooth as well. So we're going to just get ahead and start assembling this thing, put it on, and then weld it. All right, this piece slides right over, falls in place. We'll put this underneath, like that. Run this bolt in here. Washer. Block washer. Just snug this down. And you can see now these are the areas you're gonna have to weld, and you'll have to go back through here, weld this, and the same on the other side. And then you'll have to go ahead and weld the front of this airbag piece. You can just put a weld on either side like that, and that's all it really needs there. So we're gonna get ahead and clamp each side down as well. So nothing moves. And we'll weld this all up. All right, so now I got the control arm back in the car. I'm just doing one final test fit before I start welding everything up and finishing everything. Just wanted to show you the fit up in here. So with this bracket and this piece here, it fits and almost butts right up against the back there. And then you can see how far out that sits out. So it doesn't sit out too far. I think it's about maybe like 1.5 inches from here to there. So it's tucked back there enough to give us clearance for our shock. And then with that area notched out, it gives us plenty of room to actually install that bag and the bolts from the top too. So there's not that big of a gap, but it is enough to run the bolts in there. So we're gonna get ahead and get the rest of the pieces in here, get this welded up, get this finished welded up and sanded and painted, and then we'll be done with the front here. All right, so that's a wrap for today's video. So just a couple more things to do, take care of that passenger side to finish that up, and then we're on to sway bars and shocks, and then on to the back. So if you enjoyed the video, press like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.